it's been very interesting, especially given the timing and what is happening in all the tertiary institutions around the issues that are being raised by students, student protests. It focuses the mind on some of the things that we need to do. In an organization such as the National Student Fund Aid, there are a lot of issues. It's an organization that carries a lot of expectations of different stakeholders because it plays a particularly important role in supporting poor students in tertiary education. I guess my appointment would have been, positive to the extent that there are a number of issues that NSFAS itself has to address. But also, I guess in my position, I've managed to work with government, with the universities, with the private sector, with students, and therefore I bring that kind of experience, which I guess would be important, especially at this point in time in the life of South Africa as well as the life of NSFAS.
When NSFAS was established, it started as a Kagiso trust. And I think here the idea was, how do we create an organization that assists those that are poor to enter higher education? And over the years, there was a need to expand it, but also to make it part of government responsibility, to incorporate it with the work that government was doing. And that's when, through Parliament, they passed a legislation that introduced what we call TEFSA. And the vision of government was to make sure that the doors of learning are open by increasing access to higher education and training. And that could be realized through the provision of funding. And this was to address all the imbalances that were created by apartheid.
The vision of NSFAS needs to be broadened because up to now, if you look at the mandate as determined by the NSFAS Act, it is particularly to raise funding, to support poor students, to recover the loans, as well as obviously to run the administration of NSFAS and consult with the minister in terms of all matters related to student funding. I don't think that mandate is adequate, to be honest. I think the mandate needs to go beyond just supporting students financially, because we know that money and funding is only one small component that determines whether or not students are going to succeed and graduate, but in fact also find employment after graduation. So I think the mandate of NSFAS needs to be expanded to include, for instance, the support of students to reduce the dropout rates, which at the moment are very high, to improve the chances of success, to bring in partners, especially government, the universities, and the private sector in supporting students, especially students that are poor. So I think the mandate certainly requires a little bit of adjustment, especially in those areas, so that it can truly provide opportunities to poor students to graduate and find employment or start businesses.
Very good. I'm confident because in terms of our target, we actually in a month managed to visit more than 30 schools. And this means we are able to reach more than 4,000 learners in 1 month. And what we have done, we also look at provinces and issues of languages.
Yes. Sithatha umuntu opase isubject ezinjani. Kwa NSFAS siyamthatha umfundi othe wapasa ugrade 12 wabukelwa yuniversity okokuqala. Siyavana? Siyamthatha lo mfundi. In terms of E-levels, which is a subject sifuna nje uze no level 4. Level 4 yintoni? 50%.
Targeting specific schools, including schools with disabilities, because within NSFAS we have what we call the disability funding program, which targets only those learners with special needs. So for us, we thought that it's important that as part of our outreach program, we identify those schools and go to learners and educate them about the available funding opportunities.
We ran NSFAS in 2015 on a budget of 9.5 billion rands. It helps us to fund about 430,000 students at universities and TVET colleges. Universities will likely to fund about 180 to 190,000 students. The source of money, it comes mainly from state government and government institutions. The biggest one is the Department of Higher Education and Training, Department of Basic Education, the skills funds, the SITAs, and various other government departments, even provinces. In fact, we have money that comes from the UKZM provincial government, we have money that comes from the Eastern Cape government, and we're working with other provinces so that they can also put money into the fund. Therefore, when you look at NSFAS, it's a wide range. Of course, the fact that we get money from various sources makes it complicated, because each source of money provides its own rules. In as much as a benefit, but it also makes managing the fund complex.
As an organization that serves the community of students, it is absolutely important that on a regular basis we understand how the interaction between ourselves as NSFAS and the students is actually perceived, or it is actually how it turns out to be. And therefore getting continuous feedback is absolutely important in any organization, because without feedback, positive or negative, you are not able to improve and continuously make sure that you are indeed serving the needs of your clients. And the kind of feedback should not actually make people in the contact centers feel like they're not trying hard enough. It should be seen as something that is really constructive criticism, which would allow us to continuously improve.
Ever since the introduction of SBACs, all other mechanisms, some people have argued that what NSFAS is giving is not sufficient. But according to research has shown that whatever is being given, it is sufficient. It is just that what is being given for students, it is not utilized properly. And it has resulted in this shortfall, of which so many people have started to question the issue of meal allowance as to whether it is enough or whether it is not enough.
NSFAS is the new platform that we use to pay allowances to students in their pilot institutions. Then we pay these allowances in form of vouchers. They spend in our registered merchants by going to and buy and producing the voucher numbers. Then the transaction goes through. A student will need a cell phone to use SBACs. If they don't have a cell phone, then they can make use of their computer labs, their laptops to access, because we have a web-based application and we have a USSD code, which is *134 *176 hash. And SBACs will benefit the student in so many ways, because that means now they will be able to access their allowances at their convenient time, and they will get their allowances on time as well. And they can track the balance and the usage of their expenditures, because they can see the balance of spending, how much is left on their SBACs wallets.
I think the website, it's very easy to access. Any student can obviously access the website. They can also apply. From where we came, we first used to use paper forms, so we've obviously gone to online. We tried to make it open to everyone, but what we're currently doing is we're trying to change the website into having a user portal, so a student can log on almost like a Gmail type account, see statement, have some sort of portal. So NSFAS, we're embarking on this whole journey to obviously develop that interface to make it easier and more accessible for students.
The parameters of the means test, whereby NSFAS uses a certain mechanism in the distribution and allocation of funds, and within those parameters of means test, an issue of the missing middle. In the other words, you are there where you are, you don't meet the means test. There's a certain criteria that you must earn a certain amount of money to qualify, but you find that you do not meet the certain requirements. And what triggered the research, it was to see whether there is a need for a complete overhaul of the current means test that NSFAS has been using.
We really need to do an introspection at NSFAS in terms of the kind of culture that we have at the moment, and trying to find a culture that is a high-performing culture and implement that culture. And very often I've found that in an environment where you attract the best talent and people feel empowered and everybody in the organization matters and their views and their ideas matter, you're more likely to have an empowering culture that leads to high performance. And that's one of the things that we absolutely need to take care of at NSFAS, because Clearly, in an environment where people feel they are not acknowledged, they are not appreciated, you're not going to have the kind of performance that you actually require.
Thank you for calling the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Portia speaking. How may I assist you?
Hello, Portia. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm all right, thank you. Portia, I submitted my application online last month.
Yes.
I just need to check if my application was received.
Not a problem. Provide me with your ID number so I can have a look for you. Thank you so much. And I'm speaking to?
I'm speaking to Patrick Silani.
All right, Patrick. Yes, I can confirm that we have received your application, but at the moment, applications have not been evaluated as our closing date is on the 30th of November 2015. So feedback will be communicated only in January of 2016, either via SMS or email.
All right. And then, Portia, are my documents in order?
Eric o checkele Patrick the supporting documents are how di feletse, so wena o tla re later fela re khotlela ho wena re o jwetse hore ra go amogela kgotsa ga re go amogela.
So with the date kana ke
Ke ka January o tla khona go jwetsa hore application ya hao e tsamaile jwang.
all right.
All right, ha gona ntho engwe gape nka o thusang ka yona?
Sharp email.
All right. O kaya le ko social media ya rona, re ka mo Facebook le ka mo Twitter ke NSFAS 1, and then should you have any further queries, you're welcome to email us at info@nsfas.org.za.
Okay.
All right, Patrick, thank you so much for calling NSFAS and enjoy the rest of your day.
Our contact center runs from Friday to Saturday. Between Monday to Friday, we open the contact center between 8 a.m. and up to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And on a Saturday, we only open at 8 a.m. in the morning, and we closing the contact center 4:30 in the afternoon. We are receiving high inquiries when it comes to our allowances, such as our accommodation, food allowance, and transport allowance, and also to update our contact details so that they can receive any information or NSFAS who wants to put it out there. You can reach NSFAS by dialing 086 006 7327. Is I pin that 086 006 7327.
One of the successes that we have managed to achieve over the years is to educate over 1.5 million students over the years, and we have spent over 50 billion in our budget. By any measure, 50 billion is quite a lot of money. There isn't any scheme that exists in the country or any funding agency that comes close to what we have done as the scheme of government. And most of our students that we fund happens to be the first ones from their families to go to university, and they come from the most rural areas you can ever imagine, and they come from schools that are now defined as quintile 1 or quintile 2 schools.
If you do become employed after you've picked up an NSFAS loan and your repayments are actually less than covering even the interest on that loan, you effectively will be trapped in perpetual debt. Does NSFAS actually view this as a problem?
No, actually what NSFAS has done was to look into a number of challenges that faces NSFAS. One of the challenges was how do we make sure that our debtors have got a chance to pay back the loan. What was done was that to make sure that the interest rate is charged at 80% of the repo rate. We only charge interest rate after 12 months after completion of studies, which would mean that for as long as you are registered as a student, it doesn't matter how many years, we will never start charging you interest. The minute you meet graduation requirements and you graduate and then you are now employable, then we start charging interest. And over the years, we have seen our debtors paying. Over the years, we have managed to get over 300 million a year of successful repayments. Those are the debtors that voluntarily come to us and pay. The previous NSFAS Act, Section 23, used to give us powers to garnish, just to go and deduct from the employers. But that act was repealed because government and parliament felt, with the introduction of the National Credit Act, felt that it is important that we allow the debtors, to first accumulate a certain money to run their families, because they come from poor background, and once they are comfortable, then they can start paying back. When that act was repealed, NSFAS was caught off guard, it was not prepared to then negotiate with the debtors, because it was there, it was automatic that as soon as you start paying tax, NSFAS can just deduct your money. If you work government, you work in government, we don't need to negotiate with you using your PESEL, we just deduct your money. So the next day, that section is not there, we have to negotiate with you. That had a serious impact because other beneficiaries realized that they can disappear, and without giving us consent, there wasn't much that we can do.
Repayments of NSFAS loans can go a very long way to assist students who need financial support to further their studies at public and higher education institutions.
With other financial institutions, they say they check whether you have money and then they borrow you money. NSFAS, we check whether you have money. If you don't have money, then we borrow you money. We do the opposite of what other financial institutions do. But against a financial institution, you need to know the numbers, because we deal with numbers. You need collections is also a finance function. Then it helps to know the numbers.
Well, there are a number of things that we already have started to do to improve the recoveries. Because at the moment we sit with a book with a nominal value of about 21 billion rand. The fair value of that book is about 6. If we can improve the recoveries, we can actually fund a lot more students. And there are a number of things that we need to do. We need to improve the processes of collections. For starters, I think right at the origination stage, when we contract with students, when students sign the loan agreement forms, we need to make sure that all the data that is provided is accurate. We need to verify that information. The on-take process needs to be efficiently improved. And as well as just keeping in touch with the students along the whole course of study is absolutely critical and important. But then there are a number of really just basic things that you do as a money lender, which include, for instance, making sure that you're sending statements, you're following up on collections, you're incentivizing people to pay, because people shouldn't always see the fact that they need to repay their loans as a penalty. It's not. It's actually an investment that people have made in themselves, and therefore we should find ways to incentivize people so that it's not such a painful and horrible experience to repay NSFAS. And there are a number of ideas that we are actually playing around with, which we are already starting to implement to improve the level of recovery. Clearly, the hashtag Fees Must Fall campaign has a major impact on all the role players that are involved in supporting students or the universities that provide the training and opportunities for students to study. It has an impact on government, but at the end of the day, it has an impact on the total society of South Africa. And therefore, as NSFAS, clearly we are impacted because the issue of affordability of fees and entry and opportunities to get into universities and colleges is something that is actually part and parcel of our mandate. And therefore, to the extent that university or tertiary education has become unaffordable, we are directly impacted by that. At the moment, as of the last financial year, ended March 2015, we are supporting just close to 460,000 students at universities and TVET colleges. We know that there are thousands of students that we have not been able to fund, or that we have underfunded because the demand for funding for poor students is just so large. So we are impacted by what is going on. We need to find better ways of recovering the loans that are outstanding. In other words, people that owe us money. We need to find better ways to be efficient in terms of how we deal with universities and students, including how we may be dispersing claims to universities. We need to find better ways of the whole value chain.
The direction of Fees Must Fall, it was a much broader campaign than just NSFAS. It, directed at the universities, to government, in general. Then we have been raising an issue as NSFAS that some of the increases in fees are excessive, and they need to be properly explained. And because from NSFAS side, we get money from government at 5-6%, but you find that increases sometimes are in excess of 10%, and therefore that has been affecting the number of students funded. Because if fees are increasing at a much higher rate, we have to decrease the number of students that we fund because of financial constraints. But NSFAS as it's currently structured, it could be used as a vehicle to administer free education.
To all the young people there who want to pursue their dreams, I think the important thing for starters is just to be able to dream that anything is possible. It is possible that you could come from a village and you could create a company that becomes a global company. It is possible that you could achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. You could be an educated person, you could be a business person, you could be an executive, you could be a CEO of a large company. And all you need is ambition and some hard work to pursue your dreams. And as NSFAS who are there to create opportunities for students, especially those that come from poor backgrounds, to realize their dreams.